Hey, what's up guys? UrAvgWarGamer is back with another video of World of Warships. And in this video, I'm going to be taking a look at top 5 best cruisers for this ranked battle season. So the ranked battle season has arrived and it consists of tier 9 and tier 10 ships in Silver League and Gold League. So I thought I should make a video in which I will be showcasing you what are my picks, the best picks that you can have in this ranked battle season. I already have grinded out through Gold League and I have farmed all the rewards including steel. So definitely these ships will be very helpful if you are looking to grind some steel out there. So what are those ships and why they are strong? I will be explaining everything in this video, so keep watching that. And if you are new to the channel, please like, comment and subscribe. So let's talk about our number 5 pick, which is an Italian tech tree cruiser, Venezia. Now Venezia, why I would pick it at number 5? Well, it's pretty simple. Couple of reasons. I have a legendary mod in Venezia. Highly recommended. Probably the best legendary mod out there compared to other legendary mods. There are some decent ones like Petropavlovsk legendary mod, which I will explain later. But Venezia legendary mod is insanely good. I mean, you can argue that there's a Napoli out there, which is a tier 10 coal cruiser. You can buy it for coal, and that might be arguably better than Venezia. But I would say not really. There are a couple of reasons why I would prefer Venezia over Napoli, simply because of this legendary mod. Instead of 3 smokes that you usually get on Italian cruisers, or even battleships I would say, well, you have 5 smokes. The increase of 2 smoke charges and significantly reduced consumable cooldown time really is a game changer for Venezia. I mean, the guns are already very powerful, right? You might argue that Napoli has really good sap, long-range secondaries. They can deal pretty decent damage to destroyers, but again, destroyers in ranked battle doesn't spot for too long, right? And you want a salvo that would be pretty devastating against them, and you might kill them within a salvo, like half HP, dead destroyer, makes you feel good. Well, Venezia can do that since it does have a lot of guns, right? I haven't talked so many strengths, but I will explain now that why you should pick Venezia. So one of the strengths, just like I said, legendary mod reduces so many issues that Venezia has in terms of survivability, and you have now extra smokes and better cooldown time means that you can just smoke up quickly. And if you want to farm battleship, if there's a destroyer that is spotting the battleship out there, you can just smoke up and you can just easily farm any battleship out there, even cruiser out there. You can smash them. The sap does hurt. If any battleship has less armor than 54mm, almost you will get insane alpha damage of 5720. That's insane amount of pen damage. With 15 guns that you can get on a broadside ship, like you can easily chunk 15k salvos on a broadside battleship. They will just chunk them so hard. I mean, destroyers, I'm already telling you, it's a nightmare dealing against Venezia if it got caught off guard, okay? One thing that I would argue that you might want to pick the aiming system mod on Venezia. You might say that. Now, the reason why I would pick the smoke generator mod 1 on Venezia is simply because of the legendary mod. The increase of the smokes, the smoke generator consumable cooldown time, right? You might be using them more. And pretty much all of these smokes in a single battle, right? Because that's what you will do. And this thing slightly gets a lot more edge compared to the aiming system. Now you can say that the good dispersion against destroyers is really good, like 7% dispersion you are losing just for the smoke. Extra smoke duration might not be that worth it, but again, you have 5 smokes now and these smokes last for a minute and the cooldown time is almost 70 seconds. So once your smoke runs out, you also have a bit of a smoke screen dispersion time, which also increases it to like 70 seconds. So you can stay almost 70 seconds in smoke, and then after 70 seconds you will get your smoke back, which unlike the no legendary mod on Venezia, you cannot do that. But in the legendary mode, you can have this really cool thing going for it. And this seems to be started to get a lot much more viable option. Now, you can also pick spotting aircraft mod 1, which unlike in Napoli, you cannot do that. This is another very valuable change, right? Napoli also have a bit worse dispersion, slightly better sigma than Napoli, but again, at close ranges at around 11-12 kilometer, the Napoli has decent, really good dispersion, but then at long ranges, the dispersion gets wonkier, although it slightly has better sigma. But Venezia has cruiser dispersion. It's having normal dispersion that typically cruisers have, and you do have spotting aircraft, which increases the firing range even better. And if you have Luigi Sansonetti, it's even better because you will have another 8% increase because of the, a single kill if you get it. I mean, if you destroy an enemy ship, which is 100% possible in rank battle, you will have an increase of main battery fire range of 8%. So you can see where the things are going. You will have so much flexibility with spotting aircraft, unlike in Napoli. And sometimes you want to be farming ships at ranges, right? Because you cannot push them. But then, even if you want to play aggressive, you have now exhaust smoke generator. And hence the reason why you might be looking at my concealment, which is 15.8. And well, the reason why I would have a high concealment is pretty simple. You have a lot of smokes, your cooldown time is low, so you can play aggressive. You know that you won't be dying pretty quickly unless you broadside. So you can tank a bit of a damage, even though you might get overmatched by a lot of ships like Ohio, San Vincent, Vermont, and there are so many other ships. But if you are angled, you won't be Citadel. And then you have smokes, and you do definitely should pick top grade gunner skill. Now, if you have worse concealment, well, you will have a good chance of having a battleship within that concealment because it's pretty bad. So you will have a main battery reload time buff almost all the time, which is really nice, right? So you will have an additional 8% better reload time almost every time because I'm quite sure the battleship might be pushing at you and you want to farm them. So it's crazy. so Venezia have a lot of things, and I haven't even talked about the submarine surveillance. 7 kilometer of detection of submarines, that's an additional extra perk because submarines can be pretty annoying. Probably the most annoying thing in ranked battles, to be honest, because they will ping you and they just absolutely will try to just home the torpedoes on you, which is a really shit mechanic in my opinion. But that's how it is. That's how submarines are designed. So submarine surveillance does help a lot, detecting those submarines underwater, which helps a lot. So this whole build is amazing. And I have explained everything that you need to know about Venezia. The sap hurts a lot. The destroyers will definitely going to take a lot of damage. Obviously, the lack of utility of radar is the biggest reason why I won't be picking Venezia at like number 3 or number 2. A lot of other cruisers at lower numbers that I will be talking about have radar. This ship does not have. So if the destroyer is a very cheeky one, well, he will not going to be getting detected, or he will just try to evade a lot of your shells out there. And it's going to be pretty rough because you don't also have a hydro. So these are the weaknesses, and your armor and your survivability. It's okay. The HP is good. The armor is not good. As I said, Napoli has a lot tankier armor. It has 60mm side and 40mm deck, immune to be getting overmatched. But these are the things that you have to be really thinking if you want to play Venezia. Your anti-air is just like Napoli, is really not good. If you are looking to get some anti-air defense firepower out there, it's not there. The maneuverability is pretty good at 39 knots almost, so speed is really good. You can contest caps if you put yourself in smoke. And obviously, if the carriers really want to hurt you, you can always smoke yourself up, which is a huge benefit of having extra smokes. So what can go really wrong with Venezia if you pick it in this ranked battle season? And I would highly recommend it, at least at number 5. And let's talk about other cruisers that I would say maybe even better than Venezia. Just simply because of one thing, radar. I would value radar so much more because you want to counter those destroyers and not getting spotted by them in return and farmed by battleships, obviously. Alright, so at number 4, we have a British cruiser that is Minotaur. Minotaur is obviously a tier 10 light cruiser for British ships, and it's a really good pick. Honestly guys, it's a strong pick without a shadow of doubt. Minotaur, even in 2024, still have a lot of things going for it. And you might argue again that there is a contender with a radar Minotaur, because obviously you want to counter destroyers and they can be countered by radar, right? You have 10 kilometer radar, you can argue that there is a ship, a coal ship, kind of like Minotaur, exactly like Minotaur, which is Brisbane, which having HE shells and even have a better radar. So why you should pick Minotaur? Well, there are a lot of reasons. The first reason that why you should pick Minotaur, Minotaur has significantly longer action time of radar itself, okay? It lasts for 40 seconds. In Brisbane, I think it lasts for 20 seconds. You can increase the Brisbane radar to like 26 seconds if you fully build for it. But in the case of Minotaur, you can just have an action time of almost 52-ish seconds. Like it has to be more than 50 seconds if you build it properly. If I use the surveillance radar mod 1, which I can use it, you can increase it to 48 seconds and you can increase it even further with captain build. So that is pretty powerful, right? And since the destroyers, if they are trying to be contesting the cap, if they are behind the island hugging, that long duration radar is something that you really need. Since you have a concealment of, I think it's like what? 9.5 if you fully build for it. Like if I can show you the captain build, I haven't spec'd it because I have reset it, that captain. You can get it to 9 kilometers of concealment. So you still have a 1 kilometer of stealth radaring power, right? You can say again that Brisbane has way more power in stealth radaring, but again, the lasting duration of the Brisbane radar is significantly lesser than Minotaur. Obviously, the super heal is the same. The hull is almost the same. I'm not exactly sure that what sort of the differences the hull have, but I would say they are identical, except the AP is not like the AP of Minotaur. AP of the Minotaur is some of the best AP that they have given in this ship. You have 10 of the guns. I mean, Brisbane also have 10 guns, but it has HE, but the reload time is significantly worse. The DPM of AP is insane, right? We all know that Minotaur has short fuse AP and AP ricochet angles, which means that you will be getting a lot of penetration at even absurd angles. You can simply farm battleships really quickly without setting fires, although fires are really powerful game mechanic in this game. But still, Minotaur AP is definitely still the best, I would say, in farming not only battleships and cruisers if they are broadside, but also destroyers. Destroyers is going to be having a hell of a life if they are broadsiding to a radar Minotaur. Sometimes what happens if there is a destroyer that is bow in because he got caught off guard because of the the stealth radar that Minotaur has, then the destroyer has to either bow in or just stay angled completely to mitigate at least some of the damage. But again, this AP will just going to pen you and screw you up if you are a destroyer player, and hence the longer duration radar is highly valuable compared to Brisbane. Again, Stalingrad, Petropavlovsk, the ships that have good AP angles, the Desmoines is the big weakness of Minotaur without a shadow of doubt. But again, if you have the opportunity of using torpedoes, because I haven't even talked about the torpedoes. Now, torpedoes are worse than Brisbane again, because these are a couple of the things that make Brisbane a lot better. But again, the utility power of Minotaur, the gun power, the firepower of Minotaur is still pretty good, and it excels in what it does. So torpedoes are only 16 of them, 8 on each side, compared to Brisbane 20, 10 on each side. 10 kilometer only compared to 13.5 kilometer, but it still is pretty much usable. You have to play it a bit aggressive though. In the case of Brisbane, you can just send those torpedoes. 13.5 kilometer is ample amount of range if they are pushing you. In the Minotaur, you have to play a bit aggressive, but it rewards you a lot, since the aggression is something in Minotaur that if you do properly and correctly, you will be rewarded a lot much higher compared to Brisbane. But if you play pretty dumb, which I would not highly recommend. I mean, no one wants to do that. But again, in a broadside, even a slightly misangling in a Minotaur means that you will be getting Death Strike. In ranked battle, it's going to be pretty much 100% possibility that someone will Death Strike you. So yeah, keep that in mind. So the torpedoes are extremely good. You can even single launch torp them. Like any bow in Desmoines will have a lot harder time dodging these torpedoes, so it's pretty good. The anti-air defense is excellent. I mean, at least, no anti-air defense, unfortunately, in this game is gonna be enough for any carrier. You will not going to deplane that carrier, but at least what happens is he will take a lot of losses. He will take a massive losses from these anti-air power. If not, he's not going to get deplaned, but at least he will take some damage. on the planes. Okay, he will lose planes. You might have a good chance of getting a defensive expert. I mean, you don't have defensive AA like unlike Desmoines or Moskva or Stalingrad, but still the base values of AA is still very high. Your range is pretty high at 6.9 kilometers, so your A is actually, I would say, still one of the best, even though the A kind of does not meant much because the CV will strike you regardless. But at least you have some ability. That's what I can say. The maneuverability is okay. You have the the baked-in acceleration. You accelerate pretty quickly, but deaccelerates terribly. So this is something that you should be keeping in mind, that if you can speed juke someone, you can just quickly accelerate to speed juke. But try not to speed juke by deaccelerating, because the deacceleration is pretty bad. Really bad. Sometimes it's so bad that some people even able to get out of their own smokes in Minotaur. So don't do that, and you should be fine. Just like I said, concealment is pretty good. You can always use RPF if you really hate destroyers. And I would say it's definitely better than Venezia. Maybe the survivability is 1,000 times better than Venezia, but again, you can hard counter destroyers, okay? Which is the most important thing in rank battle. You kill DDs, then you are a DD yourself, because you're good concealment. You can just then become a torpedo boat, maybe a heavy destroyer you can call it, and you can just keep spamming torpedoes if the battleship is really dangerous for you. But if there is a battleship that is broadsiding you, and if you get the islands, you can just farm them pretty hard, because the AP DPM will never going to disappoint. You will get a lot of pen damage regardless. So Minotaur with the Hydro, which is obviously a good thing, I would still rate it higher than Brisbane because of the insane utility that it still has over that ship. Okay, maybe it cannot set fires, but it still have a place in ranked battle. So I would highly recommend Minotaur myself. I mean, you won't like the armor. Armor is pretty terrible. You can see here, this whole is Citadel armor. But again, it is the same for Brisbane. Okay, and if you are not comfortable in this very vulnerable cruiser out there, even though it has a super heal, which can heal 50% of the Citadel repair damage, or you can just say that it can heal 50% Citadel damage, it's still gonna be pretty much worth it. I would highly recommend that in ranked battle, although I don't see a lot of players pick it because it's difficult. So there it is. Well, there has to be a Russian cruiser that has to be a must pick for sure because of so much utilities that Wargaming has given to them. And Stalingrad does come into my mind, and probably yours as well, at number 3. So why Stalingrad, which is a steel Russian cruiser, it's a steel resource ship, you can buy it in the armory for steel. Why Stalingrad comes in my mind, and probably I would suggest you to buy it if you don't have it and pick it for rank battles, simply because the guns. The guns are some of the best. I would say the best, in this game. There is no other way of saying about these guns. Like, I have no words or expressions or something to talk about other than only the positive things about these guns. These guns are some of the most disgusting and still overpowered guns in this entire game. And by the way, I have played this ranked battle season simply by playing Stalingrad, and I have almost like more than 60% win rate in this ship. Probably even 70%, close to 70% if I'm not wrong, because of these guns. These guns are absolutely insane. The first thing about the Stalingrad, I want to talk about the guns first, but let's talk about the survivability, then I will talk about the guns for sure, because the guns are something that is really powerful, okay? So first of all, you won't be getting that much HP pool on a cruiser, but Stalingrad does have it at 72.5, which is crazy, right? You have decent torpedo protection at 25%, considering it's a cruiser, it's a heavy cruiser, it's a large cruiser, you can call it. So Stalingrad is at least good in the tankiness in terms of its HP pool. Now, your armor is also pretty decent. You can see here you have 50mm armor on the side, on the bow, or even having an armor belt, which is actually a Citadel armor belt, which is sort of a weakness, which I will explain later. But this armor is extremely tanky against battleships. If you somehow manage to make battleships shoot at this area, well, a lot of the shells, I would say all of the AP shells will bounce, because no one can overmatch Stalingrad at least there is no caliber in the game that can overmatch 50mm armor, and I hope it will never happen. But anyways, the Stalingrad is pretty tanky. The armor is good, although you have a vulnerable citadel. It's a pretty large one, but it's slightly thicker than Moskva, which is 155mm versus Stalingrad's 180mm, which does help in giving a bit more tankiness over Moskva, and it is definitely not a bit more like very much like crazy high above water like in Moskva. It's slightly low, although it is still above in the water, but compared to Moskva, it is definitely better in terms of protecting its citadel. Obviously, it does have this armor plating of 50mm on the bow, which helps him a lot in getting not citadel from the bow whatsoever, which does help a lot. We call this icebreaker armor, so that helps a lot for Stalingrad. So armor profile is pretty much getting close to the battleships, but again, then you have these 25mm bow and stern, which gets overmatched by 380mm guns or above. So that's one thing that you should be keeping in mind. If there's a good battleship player that knows these weaknesses, he will definitely able to utilize this. But the thing with the Stalingrad is, even though the HP pool and the armor looks pretty good, it has a gigantic superstructure, and I'm telling you, you will get a lot of damage straight from the superstructure. And bowing in Stalingrad might seems to be a good option, but it is actually the worst option. You should never bow in, since it has a biggest weakness which Stalingrad never used to have. It used to have this weakness for a long time now. Since they have nerfed it, it has a fire duration of 60 seconds. And it does not have even fire prevention that it used to have, because you used to pick battleship skills over cruiser. But you cannot do it because now cruiser have its own class of skills that you can use only for cruisers, okay? So this is something that you should be keeping in mind. Nikolai Kuznetsov obviously is a highly recommended captain, because the biggest problem for the Stalingrad is to get burned down rather than just dying from sheer penetration damage. Yeah, that's the problem that I have faced of getting burned down. But Nikolai Kuznetsov is a huge, it's an amazing captain, and I would say play Stalingrad with Nikolai Kuznetsov. I mean, if you don't have Nikolai Kuznetsov, then try to avoid it in Stalingrad, because you won't be getting so much value out of it, especially in late game, because you need it the most, that damage control that you get, that sort of a very small extra heal, and getting maybe even extra consumables if you get a first blood achievement is so valuable. And I mean, you can have some HP, and you have a damage control of 15 seconds, which extinguishes everything, just repair every single thing for Stalingrad, which is kind of crazier. So Nikolai Kuznetsov is must, okay? The guns, let's talk about it, because the guns have penetration with 2.05 sigma. 2.65 sigma is the highest sigma value in this entire game, which means that the shells that are going to be grouping up in that vertical or in that dispersion ellipse is going to be extremely tight. And it has battle cruiser dispersion, and its guns penetration is pretty much similar to that of Bourgogn's 380mm. You can simply go and just check out the penetration numbers of Stalingrad, because it is comparable to battleship. 380mm guns penetration levels for 305mm guns is kind of bonkers, okay? The shell velocity is insane. The shell speed is still pretty insane. Like, you can just simply throw these shells over and they will just come quickly to the target, which is the best thing that Stalingrad has. You know what's more about the Stalingrad? That it has AP ricochet angles, which means that against tight angling of cruisers, it will still going to do huge damage. And then you will have this reduced arming threshold and short fuse time, which means that even the Smolensk, having the thinnest of the armor at tier 10, is going to be extremely vulnerable against Stalingrad guns. I mean, you will eat Smolensk if they're broadside, and you will not going to get over penetrations that usually battleship gets because of their huge caliber and their, insane armor penetration and shell velocity. Stalingrad also have this insane shell velocity, but they have compensated it with threshold, reduced arming threshold, so you can easily able to get super penetration damages, like you won't be getting overpens much at all unless you are hitting on superstructure. You're getting a lot of penetrations, as simple as that. And you have a lot of guns, 9 of them. I won't say a lot of guns, but at least 9 of them. Really good reload time at 18.5 seconds for these guns that are absolutely insane in accuracy. It's crazy, okay? You have also not only AP that have almost 10,000 alpha damage, you have HE shells that have a 33% fire chance. I don't think so there is any cruiser with that caliber that has 33% fire chance. And with that accuracy, you will be able to land almost 8 or 7 shells all the time on a ship, even if it is bow in. And with this fire chance, you will almost always guarantee to have a fire on a battleship. So, I mean, even if you switch to HE, unlike Petro, because Petro not only it has only 220mm caliber, which cannot overmatch Minotaur, Smolensk because of 16mm armor. Petro can do that. If Smolensk gets angled, the AP of Petro significantly gets poorer. But in the case of Stalingrad, you will simply going to get penetration damage because of the overmatch capabilities that you get at 305mm, okay? The HE pen is 51mm. Again, you can penetrate most battleships in this game, except maybe the Kremlin, I would say. I mean, especially the ship like Libertad, which is a new Pan-American battleship, also have 51mm plating. And guess what? Stalingrad can easily pen them with 51mm pen. So full penetration damage, fires that are insane with 33%, alpha damage is pretty good, AP is absolute bonkers. You cannot go wrong with Stalingrad, okay? If I talk about the maneuverability, because here's the problem, okay? The fire duration is the biggest problem. You will be having a lot of issues with fire, so you have to play in a kiting way. You put yourself in a kiting position because that's the only way that you should be playing Stalingrad, unless you get into the late game situation where you might have some heals, because you do have some heals, you have a radar. It's not like the Moskva, it's a short duration radar, but it is definitely still better than Petro. It's 20 seconds base, but you can get it up to 26 seconds, which is pretty nice. You have defensive air fire on a separate slot, so that's very valuable, but you don't have hydro. Now, defensive air fire, the A rating of Stalingrad is pretty good. Overall, it has 6.6 kilometer firing range, which is again higher than 6 kilometer. But here's the thing with this defensive air fire. Your continuous damage is actually half compared to normal defensive air fire continuous damage, which usually gets to 50%, okay? The action time, however, is 60 seconds, which is extremely good. Now, why I would say this? It's pretty simple, because if you're able to push the carrier, somehow the carrier is trying to strike you multiple times because it is cold close, well, this action time would be helping a lot. But if the carrier is long and if it's not FDR, if for example it's a Nakhimov, this action time is kind of useless because Nakhimov is only based on one strike, unlike FDR. FDR has multiple strikes that he can do on a single squad, so that's where the action time will be a lot better. In the case of Nakhimov or A6, most of the time it's kind of gets diminished in value. So this is something that you should be keeping in mind. But still, anti-defense is there. It has a long cooldown time of 180 seconds. That's also one thing to remember. But overall, the AA is pretty good. You will be pretty okay against aircraft carriers. I'm not going to say that insanely powerful, but definitely you can defend yourself to some extent, unlike other cruisers, which sadly they can't do that much. And on the other hand, the range is excellent at 20.4. I have talked about the sigma value. You can just shoot the guns and then you will see that how the dispersion will be so much tightly grouped that it's not even funny. The maneuverability is the worst, I would say, of all cruisers. Some of the worst of all cruisers. Like, if I put a Stalingrad, for example, if there's a Titanic ship and if I replace it with Stalingrad, I'm quite sure that the Stalingrad will just simply ram that iceberg instead of able to dodge that iceberg to some extent. Which Titanic able to do that so in 1912? Stalingrad won't be able to do that because it has so bad turning circle and bad rudder shift time, so he will just completely just hit the iceberg and he will just get detonated. Which unfortunately, well, I would say fortunately won't happen in the next patch, but unfortunately, yeah, detonation does happen. So just trying to, do some jokes out there. But anyways, worst concealment, extremely bad concealment at 14.2. But again, play it in kiting, you will be finding a lot much more value in Stalingrad. I think I have explained everything, the reason why you should pick Stalingrad. A is good, you have radar, decent radar at 12 kilometer range, which does help a lot. Not longer like Moskva or Nevsky, but still pretty competitive. 12 kilometer does caught many destroyers off guard, regardless of how poor concealment that you might have. So I would say, just because of the guns, just because of the overmatch against light cruisers, you will just absolutely make their life hell. You are amazing. You are battleship in a cruiser hull with a radar. And if you want that, if you want the accuracy, if you want the dispersion, that really supports your mindset, Stalingrad is actually for you. It's for me right now as well, because I have played and win a lot of games. Even maybe I might show you the ranked gameplay of Stalingrad, in which I just literally carried the best way possible. So definitely a really good pick at number 3. At number 2, I would rate Desmoines, which is a Tech 3 heavy cruiser, as one of the best picks. Even maybe better pick compared to Stalingrad. Now again, it's kind of based on more riskier and more rewarding playstyle, because you have to play a bit more closer. In terms of armor, you are going to be a lot much more in suffering condition because of only 30mm armor of deck and sides, and you know that there are so many battleships with so much overmatching capabilities, so you cannot simply tank them directly. But Desmoines has to literally use the islands as cover, okay? And this is the main reason why you should pick Desmoines, okay? Your DPM is one of the biggest reasons over Stalingrad. Your AP shells that have amazing ricochet angles, even better than Stalingrad. The HE DPM, the AP DPM, everything about the Desmoines, in terms of the gun performance, is the best, I would say, in the game. Okay? You can play aggressive, you can use the islands as cover, even though your armor is not best, but you have to use the islands. If you're not able to do that, so if you put yourself in a very risky position where you are bowing in against even 406mm battleship, because they can also overmatch your bow. But that's the same with Stalingrad, right? But again, there are going to be so many 457mm battleships, right? Like Vermont, Bungo, maybe the St. Vincent, okay? They will just simply overmatch you. So here you have to use the legendary mod. Extremely highly recommended enhanced propulsion plant, which not only improves your rudder shift, but also improves the acceleration, because the acceleration is something that will help Desmoines use the islands as cover effectively, because you can just simply push in and out of the islands, use the cover effectively, abuse the islands, and able to lob the shells over, because the shells are such that they can easily lob over any island out there. It's a lot easier compared to, for I would say, example, the Petro, Moskva, or Stalingrad, because all those cruisers have a lot much more faster shell velocity. So that's what I would say, where the Desmoines would be a lot much better with the islands as cover, okay? You can lob over them pretty effectively. Your radar is also one of the reasons. I mean, your radar is 10 kilometer and your concealment is, I would say, 10.9. So only 0.9 kilometer of buffer and only that much room for a destroyer to wiggle. But most of the time, the destroyers will catch themselves off guard, and the Desmoines behind the cover will simply radar you. If you are if you are contesting the cap, Desmoines behind the cover won't be getting spotted unless the CV is there. And with this very long duration of almost like 45-46 seconds with the mod, with the surveillance radar mod and the captain build, you will be very comfortable for a long duration radar in Desmoines. And definitely that's the reason why Desmoines is still pretty terrifying in the hands of experienced players. Like, experienced players should play Desmoines, and I would say Desmoines is definitely the best cruiser in that regard. It's better than Stalingrad, only if someone knows what he's doing. Because again, just like Minotaur, it rewards riskier gameplay, and it rewards a lot higher. You are going to be absolutely pain in the neck for not only Stalingrad, not only Petro, but also Moskva, because your DPM is absurd. Your fire chance is 14%, your HE shells does have a less damage, but again, your rate of fire is almost double to that of Petro, even triple to that of Stalingrad. So Stalingrad taking fires of 60 seconds, Desmoines will just eat them. Biggest problem for Stalingrad, right? You have radar, just like I said. You have hydro. You can also put defensive air fire, but I don't think so. It's a good idea. Like hydro is going to be giving you a lot much more value simply because you want to take on destroyers, and this is the reason why you're taking Desmoines. Your guns are having insane DPM. You want to kill destroyers because of this DPM. Your range is enough if you use islands as cover. You want to protect the caps. Desmoines is where it's gonna shine a lot. You have cruiser duration fires. Fires is not a big problem, even if you don't have the, what do we call, fire prevention. So entire defense, on the other hand, I would say it's worse than Stalingrad, I would say. I mean, your range is only like, 5.8 kilometer firing range, so it's worse than Stalingrad, Moskva, and Petro. So it's pretty much obvious that I'm going to be not rating Desmoines to be having that good a whatsoever. But other than that, maneuverability is good. It's not, I would say, the best, but it's pretty good. At least compared to the heavy cruisers, Russian heavy cruisers, it's definitely going to be a lot much better. Concealment, as what I said, concealment will help you a lot if you use islands as cover, and you will radar DDs. So this is the reason why you should pick Desmoines. Your legendary mod will help you a lot. If you're simply able to push from island to island, from cover to cover, and using the islands or abusing the islands and not able to get spotted, the battleships are going to have a lot of issues. I mean, Desmoines is still good in that regard. You can speed juke if you do have this legendary mod, enhanced propulsion plant, because it is that good. Even if you want to kind of get forced in open water fighting, it's a must if you use this legendary mod. It's a must. This is a must. You should pick it. Then you may be able to speed juke the shells if the battleships are shooting, if you are forced to be in open water. Okay? And that's why I would say it's better than even Worcester. I don't want to talk about Worcester again, but Worcester has less radar range. The biggest problem of the Worcester is the shells are not like Desmoines. The AP angles, Desmoines does have it. I mean, you can just easily see little cruisers at like 13, 14 kilometers. There are so many things to talk about Desmoines, and I would say the guns are the biggest reason. The rate of fire is the biggest reason why Desmoines is superior pick in rank battles. This shouldn't be a surprise. I'm quite sure that Petro has to be the number one pick in this rank battle for a cruiser. I mean, you might argue that you have talked so many strengths about Stalingrad, but then why Petro over Stalingrad? Simply because of its insane survivability. I mean, Petro can just stay bow in, and it does not need to fear to get overmatched because of this 40mm armor. Its armor is a lot better than Stalingrad, I would say, in some way, because the ship basically resides so much, thinly over the water. Stalingrad has kind of a big hull. I don't know how to say it, but it's like big hull. The height over the water of the hull of Stalingrad itself, it's a bit bigger. The superstructure of Stalingrad is a lot bigger. Petro is like very small, superstructure. And even there, it is a conning tower out there, which is a bit more tankier. Overall, the armor is not going to be overmatched by any battleship out there. But I mean, no one, not even Satsuma, not even incomparable can be able to overmatch this. Your bow is a bit vulnerable, sure, like Stalingrad, but again, most of the people will try to shoot at the superstructure. It's very difficult to shoot here unless you might be talking about Bungo or Wisconsin at close ranges, which have really good horizontal and vertical dispersion. But usually, you are overall probably the most tankiest cruiser in this entire game. I mean, you can simply easily bow in this Tech 3 cruiser, Russian cruiser, obviously, and it's better to use Nikolai Kuznetsov. I mean, it's the best captain out there for Russians, right? Nikolai Kuznetsov is a game changer, just like I said. If it saves Stalingrad from fires, it gives Petro also some new life, because guess what? You have to use the legendary mod. The best legendary mod in this entire game. In my opinion, I believe that this legendary mod for Petro is absolutely game changer. I mean, the dispersion that you can get at around 10-12 kilometers is unlike anything in the game. Like, it's even better than Stalingrad. And alpha damage is also significantly improved because of the 10% main battery AP shell damage. So you can get it up to like 7,334, which is good. It's not like Stalingrad. It does not have overmatch, but again, it has kind of similar style of AP pen. Like it's worse than Stalingrad. You can say it's not like 380mm Bourgogne like penetration that you get on Stalingrad, but again, the shell velocity is actually a bit better in like 0.0 seconds compared to Stalingrad. The shell velocity at ranges is going to be a bit better. The shells itself having improved ricochet angles like Stalingrad, as well as it also have short fuse and reduced arming threshold, just like Stalingrad. So the penetration is slightly worse than Stalin, but still the shell velocity is insane. You can able to citadel battleships at close ranges where it matters, and since you will be getting a pinpoint accurate dispersion, I mean, you will also going to have that almost pinpoint accurate dispersion with Stalingrad, but Petro, I would say most of the time feels a lot much more insanely tighter. Like it's like the laser accuracy that you can get at close ranges is, I would say, still sometimes not possible in Stalingrad. That's my personal opinion. You might argue with that, but again, I feel that totally for Petro. I mean, your radar might be worse than Stalingrad without a doubt. Like you can only get it up to like 20 seconds with full build that you have. Like even with the captain build, even with the mod, you can get it up to like only 20 seconds. So that's one of the biggest weakness of the Petro. But again, you're kind of playing a battleship just like Stalingrad, but it's a lot more tankier because of the smaller superstructure. Overall hull thickness is lower than Stalingrad, and you have cruiser duration of fires, 30 seconds of duration of fires, even though your HP might be looking a bit less. But again, I have felt that the penetration and the damage that battleships are trying to do against Petro is significantly lower than against Stalingrad. Again, torpedo protection might not be the best, but it's not worse either. It's very close to Stalingrad regardless. Anti-defense, I would say maybe better than Stalingrad simply because it has normal defensive fire. With similar firing range, almost everything similar, like maybe I can argue that Stalingrad has slightly better anti-defense with the base numbers, but still, this usually normal defensive fire is still going to be good enough. Obviously, this legendary mod comes up with one huge downside though, repair party that you don't have, like one repair party less, one radar less. But again, there is Kuznetsov, right? Kuznetsov gives you a bit of a healing if you get lower than 10% of your HP, and the dispersion gets worse, and then you have a free damage control for yourself. So, I mean, it kind of mitigates this problem that it comes up with this legendary mod, with the heal that you can come up with Nikolai Kuznetsov. So many combinations that you can use for Petro. It helps a lot. Your maneuverability, again, better than Stalingrad, but still worse than almost all other cruisers in the game, like 990 meters, almost 1,000 meters. Turning circle, the speed is actually also worse, but I would say speed is not like the biggest issue for even Petro, because these are pretty tanky cruisers. The kiting angles, the firing angles are also pretty excellent. Like kiting angles are extremely good, even though I would argue that if you are using the guns as bow in, you only want to use the 6 guns because you have to show a bit of a side when you are using the back gun on the Petro compared to Stalingrad. Stalingrad gets a lot much more good angling if it wants to use all the guns. So overall, I would still say because of the way better tankiness, because of no fire duration problem that Stalingrad has, I mean, it has only cruiser fires. Because of this tankiness that it has, comes up with Nikolai Kuznetsov and with the legendary mod firepower that it has come up with, Petro is a no-brainer. It is a must pick in ranked battle, and it's a free ship. One of the biggest reasons why I would rate Petro over Stalingrad is for steel. You might not have enough steel. Maybe you are a new player that wants to get the best ship out of this season for ranked battles, for cruisers. Well, Petro does have this. It's like a pocket Stalingrad. It exactly does like that. Like now the dispersion gets worse, but it is not gonna get so much worse because of the legendary mod, which is a huge upside again. So with legendary mod, it's definitely going to be worth it. Even without legendary mod, if you don't have Stalingrad, it's still going to be worth it. But I won't say maybe like compared to Desmoines. Desmoines might be a better pick if you don't have legendary mod. But again, this tankiness, this armor, you cannot get it in Desmoines. Your AP is bonkers. Your HE might be on the worst side, but still have 37mm pen. So you will be just fine. Your fire chance is pretty much similar than Desmoines again though. But still, it's all about using AP and getting to the broadsides. And if you're able to do it, Petro is the best cruiser exactly for that. Even better than Stalingrad. I guess that's it from my side. I will be posting some, I would say, honorable mentions. And I would say Moskva is one of the honorable mentions out there. Now, I don't want to talk about this in detail, but Moskva is like in between Petro and Stalingrad. It has 12km radar. The HE DPM is significantly better, even though the AP is unlike Petro and Stalingrad out there. The armor is pretty much similar to Stalingrad, but it has definitely very, very high raised above water citadel, even worse than Stalingrad. Only 155mm armor, but it does have cruiser fire duration, which is unlike Stalingrad. The HP is closer to Stalingrad. The torpedo protection is slightly better than Stalingrad and a lot better than Petro, significantly better than Petro, like almost 30% better or 25%, which does help a lot against destroyers, torpedo boat destroyers. You do have the similar consumables like hydro, surveillance radar, and heal like on the Petro, but the radar lasts for almost 40 seconds, which I talked about before. So definitely double than Petro and almost way better than Stalingrad, okay? Hydro, just like I said, it's pretty good. The firing range, you can improve it to 22.6 kilometers if you want to, but since in the ranked battles, your 19-ish kilometer firing range should be enough. So try to get more DPM to pick, so you can pick main battery mod 3, or maybe even pick legendary mod if you have to. Concealment, kind of worse, almost like Stalingrad. The maneuverability is almost the same in terms of turning circle, maximum speed, so nothing to talk about. I would say if you want to have a cruiser that does not rely more on AP and also can be able to burn ships down with good HE shells, with good reload time, with the good tankiness that it gets with 50mm armor plating, Moskva is a good choice. It's an alternate pick, and that's basically that I want to talk about Moskva. I don't want to talk in detail. Maybe I can just talk about hours and hours about this ship because it's good. It still have a place. But there are some other ships that I want to mention. And that is Smolensk, another Russian cruisers. There are so many good Russian cruisers out there. It's kind of weird, but that's how they are. That's how they are strong in this game. So Smolensk is a rare ship, okay? Some of you might not be able to have this ship right now. Maybe you might try to grind it in the auction in the name of Smolensk B. If you have Smolensk B, consider yourself lucky, because it is still disgustingly broken in many, many ways. The armor, obviously, it might looks pretty thin, and the citadel looks to be here, but it's not kind of there because it's pretty thin in this entire game. Like usually the cruisers have thick armor plating, and the reason why is so that the battleship at those calibers, higher calibers like 457s, 500mm or whatever, they will be able to penetrate the armor, the citadel armor, without getting overpens. But in the case of Smolensk, the whole armor is such that you are going to get so much overpens. Like even on angled Smolensk, armor is such that you will be getting overpens. I mean, armor is crazy weird. It's the most weirdest armor I would say in this game. I mean, it's very difficult to citadel it, and sometimes you get citadels and you will just blap it because the HP pool is not the best. I mean, I'm using a Ovechkin, otherwise it has 32,000 HP, okay? You have the guns. Again, just like all Russian ships, you have the guns, but guns are 16 of them. You have a lot of HE spam, the fire chance is 10% with proper build, the AP does insane damage. These are crossover guns, are destroyer guns, but having destroyed version on cruiser hull. You have 16 of the guns, your HE DPM is absurd, AP DPM is even more absurd. I mean, combined with the fact that you have smokes, you have heals, like Smolensk is like a machine gun, firing machine gun, HE spammer, flamethrower, whatever you call it. It just makes life pretty hard for battleships out there. You just smoke up, you just spam ships out there, and there's nothing that someone can do unless there is a radar out there, unless you might caught off guard. It's very difficult to fight against Smolensk. But again, if you caught off guard and you cannot disengage against carriers, because carrier is the biggest weakness of Smolensk, because you don't want to use defensive air fire. You want to use hydro to just keep yourself out of the torpedoes of DDs, torpedo boat destroyers. because you will catch so many torpedoes. Your poor maneuverability does kind of help you in taking those torpedoes. So yeah, you want to take hydro, not defensive fire. Makes life a bit harder against carriers because the air defense is not really impressive. Unfortunately, it's not like 6.6 kilometer that you can find on Petro and Stalingrad, so definitely it's on the worst side. But again, it's about the guns. If you're able to properly use it, again, like Desmoines, if you are familiar of the Desmoines gameplay, I think Smolensk will be a lot much more easier. But you might not have a utility of a radar, right? But if you would give Smolensk a radar, like, then why is the reason of picking any other cruiser than Smolensk itself? Like, it's the most retarded ship in the game then, right? HE spam, AP, like everything that you have in a single package with radar if you get a radar in the first place. So, yeah, that's basically it. There might be some other cruisers that I would mention, but I won't say so. These are the cruisers that I would highly recommend, as well as honorable mention that I have mentioned in this video. So definitely, it has taken some time. And if you do like the content, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I will catch you guys in the comments, where you might be able to say something about my picks out there and what you will be picking this ranked battle season in terms of cruiser class. Please let me know in the comments. And I will catch you guys into the next one. Peace out.